He was born into unimaginable wealth, a name that opened every door in the Middle East. But behind that privilege hid a storm, one that would one day shake the entire world. This is the untold story of how a quiet, underestimated young man, Osama bin Laden, turned his privilege into power and his faith into fury. In the early 1960s, Saudi Arabia was booming. The oil beneath its sands had transformed it from barren deserts to palaces of gold. And at the heart of it all was the bin Laden family, construction magnates who built the kingdom's mosques, highways, and royal palaces. Among Mohammed bin Laden's 54 children was a quiet, tall boy named Osama. He wasn't the smartest, the richest, or the loudest. But those who knew him remembered something unsettling, a seriousness far beyond his years. He prayed alone. He read ancient texts while others played, and when classmates mocked him for being too pious, he would only smile. They didn't know. That smile hid the beginning of an obsession. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The Muslim world watched in outrage as villages burned and mosques fell. To most, it was distant news, but to Osama, it was a divine signal. He was only 22, a rich Saudi heir with everything, yet he walked away from it all. Leaving behind marble floors and silk curtains, he took up arms in the Afghan mountains. The world saw him as a spoiled idealist. Even his own commanders dismissed him, a young Saudi with more money than military sense. But Osama had something they didn't: influence. He funded camps, built roads, and rallied fighters not with power, but with faith. In those rugged mountains, a legend began to form. The underestimated son of privilege had found his purpose. As the Soviets withdrew, the world celebrated. The Cold War was shifting. The West believed the battle was over, but Osama saw something different. He believed he'd just witnessed God's victory through his own hands, and that belief grew into something darker. He returned to Saudi Arabia a changed man, unrecognizable to his family. His eyes burned with conviction, his words with warning. He told leaders, "The next enemy is not the Soviets, it is the West." The royal court laughed. They told him to go back to his business, to his family fortune, to his quiet faith. But when a man believes God is on his side, no empire, no crown, no army can silence him. They banned him from speaking publicly. He was mocked, humiliated, stripped of privilege, and that humiliation, by the very people he once served, lit a fire no one could put out. In exile, Osama gathered the broken, the lost, and the angry. From the shadows, he built a new kind of army, one without borders or uniforms. He called it Al-Qaeda, the base. To his followers, he was no longer a rebel, but a prophet. To his enemies, he was still a joke. Western intelligence dismissed him, a wealthy fanatic hiding in the desert, irrelevant to global politics. But behind their laughter, his influence grew. Training camps spread from Afghanistan to Sudan. Money flowed through hidden networks, and the man, once underestimated, was now orchestrating a silent global war. 1998. U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania explode. Hundreds dead. The world watches in horror, and finally whispers his name: Osama bin Laden. For the first time, the West realized the magnitude of the enemy they'd ignored. But it was already too late. From the caves of Tora Bora, bin Laden watched the chaos on satellite TV and smiled. To him, this wasn't murder. It was divine justice. The underestimated boy from Jeddah had just declared war on the world's most powerful nation. His power grew, not in numbers, but in devotion. Thousands swore allegiance. His name became a chant in militant camps. Yet deep inside, a strange irony began to unfold. The man who claimed to fight oppression had become the oppressor. The liberator was now the killer. But Osama didn't see it that way. Every rejection, every humiliation, every underestimation had forged a belief so strong that he now saw himself not as human, but as chosen. By the late 1990s, U.S. intelligence intercepted fragments of chatter. A major attack was coming, but no one believed it would be catastrophic. In meetings, officials dismissed bin Laden as a fading threat, a desert preacher with no real power. And as those words echoed through conference rooms in Washington, in secret, Osama's men were already inside America. Training, planning, waiting. The underdog no one took seriously was about to bring the world to its knees. Power shifts are never clean. The man once underestimated had become untouchable. Until the world finally united to destroy him. But before justice came, millions would pay the price of his rise. His war, born from humiliation, would scar generations. And yet, in a cruel twist of fate, the same arrogance that once dismissed him would become the very force that finally brought him down. In the mountains of Tora Bora, Osama vanished. No one knew if he was alive or buried beneath the rubble of his own creation. But whispers began to spread. Of a compound hidden in plain sight, a ghost protected by silence, and when the truth finally surfaced, the world would witness a mission unlike any before. Never underestimate the power of rejection, for in the wrong hands, wounded pride can turn faith into fire, and faith into war. When the dust of 9/11 settled, America was broken, angry, and determined. Across the Atlantic, military bases buzzed with orders, while CIA operatives began the impossible, to find a man who could be anywhere. But finding Osama was not like tracking a criminal. It was like chasing an idea, one that had spread across continents, hearts, and borders. The CIA called it Operation Jawbreaker. Armed with whispers and satellite images, they searched the caves of Afghanistan, the rugged Tora Bora Mountains. Hundreds of soldiers surrounded the valleys, and still he slipped away. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed him. In Washington, the tension grew. Billions of dollars, hundreds of missions. Yet every lead went cold. One agent said, "He's not hiding. He's watching." And maybe he was. Bin Laden, hidden deep in Pakistan, had traded deserts for walls, a quiet life behind high fences in a town no one would suspect. Abbottabad, a city of military officers, children, and calm. There he lived as a recluse, watching old footage of himself, writing letters, raising rabbits for his daughters. He believed his disappearance was divine protection, but his ghost was about to be found. It started with a single name, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, a courier, loyal, careful, invisible. For years, he had carried bin Laden's words to the outside world. The CIA tracked him, following every phone call, every turn, every mistake, until one day he led them to a high-walled compound with no internet, no phone, and burned trash. Something about it felt wrong. No one entered, no one left, and the tall figure pacing the garden, always staying in the shadows. They called him the Pacer. For months, analysts studied that movement. A man who walked in circles, always within walls, too cautious, too silent, too powerful to be ordinary. They believed it was him. At the White House, President Obama sat in a silent briefing room. No one could be sure, but every instinct said the same thing. Bin Laden was inside. The mission was born. Operation Neptune Spear, a top-secret raid that would either rewrite history or start a war. May 1, 2011. Two stealth helicopters lifted off from Afghanistan under moonless skies. 23 of America's most elite warriors, SEAL Team 6, flew silently into Pakistan. No one could know, not even the Pakistani government. As they approached Abbottabad, one helicopter clipped a wall and crashed. The mission was seconds from disaster, but no one turned back. The team pressed forward, breaching walls, clearing rooms, floor by floor. Screams, gunfire, confusion. And then, at the top of the stairs, a tall figure in a white robe stepped out. The man the world had feared for a decade stood frozen. 2 shots ended 10 years of terror. It was over, or so they thought. Within hours, the world erupted. Some cheered, some doubted, some mourned. 2 shots ended 10 years of terror. It was over, or so they thought. Within hours, the world erupted. Some cheered, some doubted, some mourned. Photos were never released. His body was buried at sea to prevent his grave from becoming a shrine. But with secrecy came suspicion. Had he really died? Was the mission even real? Had the U.S. killed justice or buried the truth? The irony was chilling. For years, the world had searched for Osama bin Laden, and when they finally found him, the truth about his death became just as mysterious as his life. In his final years, bin Laden had written letters filled with fear, of drones above, of betrayal from within, of his empire collapsing. He no longer commanded armies. He was no longer the untouchable leader of Al-Qaeda. He was a sick man trapped in his own paranoia, hiding from the very darkness he had created. The underdog who once rose from privilege to power had become a prisoner of his own legend. And yet, even in death, his ghost refused to fade. Attacks inspired by his ideology continued. New leaders rose. The world learned that you can kill a man, but not always what he stands for. The price of vengeance was heavy. The line between justice and revenge blurred forever. But somewhere deep within the CIA's classified vaults, files remained sealed. Names, coordinates, confessions, locked away from public view. What was found inside that compound was far more than weapons or letters. It was evidence of something the world was never meant to see. And those who know won't speak, because the hunt for Osama bin Laden may have ended that night, but the secrets he left behind are only beginning to surface. And fear never lasts, because the walls you build to protect yourself will one day become your prison.